Now, I'm going to warn you that there'll be a little bit of participatory business. Just be thinking, as I'm talking for the first couple of minutes, if you're A, happy to stand up, and if you're not, do you have anything that makes a noise? So just be thinking about whether you've got anything about your person you can use to make a noise. Could be your voice, could be anything else. So just have a think about that. But I am here today to talk to you about hope. And hope, you know, may feel like an odd thing to talk about at a technology conference. I've been working in tech for 30 years now, and that has not always been the most hopeful experience of my life. And yet I keep coming back. I kind of genuinely believe that we can do amazing things in spite of what may be happening around us. And the thing about hope is, like, it probably doesn't come up in meetings. It's not very KPI friendly, it's not very measurable, it's not monetizable, won't unlock any leaps in AI, that kind of thing. But hope is amazing. And what's particularly interesting about it is it gets bigger, right? So if I'm hopeful and I share my hope with you, that hope becomes more important, more powerful. It's not like other things that we give away and we have less. You know, if even a tiny amount of hope that I have moves around the room today, we will be a force. Which leads me to the other thing I'm going to talk about. You know, what are we able to do together that we can't do alone? And I think a lot of the time, it's very easy to feel small, like we don't make a difference. But there are literally hundreds of people in this room. If only 5 of you leave talking to each other with a plan, that's amazing. That's a thing that wouldn't have happened, you know. And so I want you to be thinking, as well as how to make the noise, about how to be collaborative, hopeful, open, not to put up barriers. And in order to kind of get us to a place where hope seems possible, we're going to spend the next few minutes getting all the negativity out, right? We're going to get all the grumps out, move on. So this is the moment. If you are able to stand up, I'm going to ask you to stand up in total for probably 5 minutes. If you can't stand up, make a noise. So who is prepared to, and you do not need to make notes, stand up if you can, and if you can't, make a big noise for me. Or both, make a noise anyway. Let me hear you. Oh, what a beautiful thing. Right. What we are going to be doing is a very non-scientific vote in which, if you don't agree, sit down. If you agree, stand up and make a noise. Right? Yeah? Do you understand? Amazing. Amazing. So, stay standing up if you work in tech, more or less. It can be sort of generally. And I'm very happy to see everybody is here, standing up. Amazing. Great work. Stay standing up if you're like not feeling amazing about how it's all going. If you know, have some worries. I can hear a lot of laughing. Maybe, can we turn that into like a bit more of a roar? Kind of, get it all out, get it all out. I want to hear it. Okay, amazing. And I particularly, how are we feeling about these guys? So we're like really into that? Is that correct or less? No? No? Okay, fine. Now, stay standing up. If you kind of had enough of like this thing that you're meant to be working in, making like everything a bit worse. So misinformation, undermining democracy, doing like all the things that it's not meant to do. Give me a big noise if you're unhappy about that. I think it's really interesting, particularly like for people like me who've done this for years and years and years. It's meant to be all about opening up access to the world's knowledge, making it democratized. If you're just coming in, it's a bit counterintuitive, but stay standing up if that's okay. Great. So basically, it's like technology was meant to open up all the world's information, make it easier for more people to have access to high quality content and knowledge. But actually, you know, the World Economic Forum thinks that misinformation and disinformation is like the largest risk that we face, and will become more of a risk in the next 2 years. So, make a noise if you are unhappy about the fact that technology that is meant to be distributive, that is meant to create opportunity, is actually very often built on exploitative labour and environmental harm. How do we feel about that? Give me a big roar. And it's like, I think very often what happens is all the technology, it's meant to be magic. Like the more magic it is, the more people are involved, the more exploitation happens. You know, those Amazon, what are they called? The walk and go stores that are actually powered by people in India. Like it isn't AI, it's people miles away, you know. I think there are many, many problems about what progress looks like and what it really takes. And just overall, how do you feel about the fact that technology, the thing that has brought us all here in this room today, is on aggregate maybe not making things better? Are we happy about that? Come on, with more. Come on, that was very half-hearted. I wanna hear a big. Yeah, great. Okay. But the thing is, and this is a lovely image, and I think you can sit down now. I might ask you all to stand up again in a moment if I can't remember the order of the slides, but I think you can sit down. Thank you very much for your service. The thing is that two things can be true at once. Everything can be terrible, and it can be amazing. You know, the world is an extraordinary place. People are generally incredible, right? And that it's very easy to feel dominated and overwhelmed by the things that aren't working. But actually, there's a lot that is working, and there's a lot of opportunity there. And this image here, I just want to shout out to the illustrator. And this is a theme I will be coming back to with slightly less rude language later on. But, oh yeah, give me one last roar. Is the reason that you're here that you want to make technology work for people and planet? Are you here to make a difference? What a beautiful sound. So, luckily, you are not alone. There are many of us who want to do that. And we have started a society. And now, because we are doing it in the very opposite way to moving fast and breaking things, but with a lot of care and very slowly and deliberatively, it's taking us a little while to get it set up. But the Society for Hopeful Technologists is a new professional body for people who want technology to work for people and planet. We'll be launching sort of properly for members, I think June, July. But what we are now is a community of hundreds of people who want to make technology better. And we've got two, at least, in the audience here today. Tessa and Hugh, can you give a big wave? And Hugh will be around with badges. If you don't already have one, I heartily encourage you to pick up a badge. So, what I'm here to tell you about is what we're planning to do, why we think it's important, and why we think we have an opportunity to make a change. So, rather than being an advocacy body or a union, we're a solidarity network. Like, we're here to look after each other. We're here to look after each other, uplift each other, amplify each other, because it can get very lonely out there, right? And we're a new kind of organisation. We're constituting as a member co-op, and that means we will be governed by our members. And we're here to do a range of different things that I will talk about in a moment. The first is, right, we want to give everyone who feels, you know, that potential for hope the means to actually act on it, right? One of the things I hear a lot of, right, is people listing everything that isn't working, right? It's very easy to get overwhelmed by Palantir and Amazon and all that stuff, right? But that actually, you know, everyone here is amazing. You are skilled, committed individuals, right? And we want to create an environment that enables you to stand up for the technology that you believe in. We also think it's really important to demystify tech, and that actually there is such a load of expertise, right, that is not what is reflected in the news, it's not what gets reported, right? And that actually, how can we channel that expertise in different ways? And the last one, and in a way, I think this is the most important one, and I'm going to talk about all of these in more detail in a moment, is we want to make it easy to be hopeful. I say that. Make it easy to move the slide on. Great. And so it's like very easy to get overwhelmed by negativity and everything that's happening and sort of go down in a doom loop. But that if we've got a shared vision of something we can work towards, you know, there's a huge number of possibilities there. There's a great slogan that I really love that the Zapatistas use, which is making a world where many worlds fit, right? It's not about kind of understanding our place in relation to others. It's about making the most of that opportunity. So, as I said, we're not a labour union. We're not the people to talk to if you're having problems in the workplace. We're not like Open Rights Group or Privacy International. We're not going to be organising open letters and those kinds of things. You know, we're here to lift up expertise. And like, I've been thinking about it a little bit like the BMA, right? So the BMA is the professional body for doctors. And they represent the clinical expertise and knowledge of the people. You don't hear from the BMA all the time, but when you do, it's important. They're authoritative, significant, and expert. And I think that is my ambition for us. And so why solidarity? Why does that seem important? Well, what if we're not just 500 people in a room? What if we're a movement, right? What if we're a voice, right? What if, rather than worrying alone, we make a change actively together? And I think particularly, right, sometimes if you're working in a large organization, if you're working in a very complex setting, it can feel very lonely, very isolating. It can feel as if maybe the change that you want to make is kind of too complicated to talk about. But what we have seen, even in the last year of a Signal group, for instance, is that lots is able to happen if people support each other, look after each other, and, listen. And we think there's a real opportunity in solidarity. Not least because, my experience of working in tech is it doesn't matter how right you are if you don't have as much money as these guys, right? So, like, the amount that big tech spends lobbying in Europe last year was 151 million euros, right? That's a huge amount of money. We're never going to have that. We're never going to be able to compete with a Microsoft campaign or a Palantir campaign. We're never going to be in a place where this amazing line here, Britain must treat tech giants like nation states, right? I mean, what a ridiculous thing to say. But anyway, like, I think it's really important that there's such a lot of knowledge and expertise, and the kind of people who hear these kinds of things and go, that's ridiculous, right? We can have a voice, right? But it's much more important to do that collectively. And that, again, it can feel very alienating, but how change happens is from the bottom up. It happens from us individually, like moving from becoming individuals to being collectives, right? That's how civil rights works. It's how feminism works, right? That actually it's about whatever is happening in your heart, sharing it with others and acting on that. The other thing is, why do we want to make technology easier to understand? Hype is kind of the heart of everything, I think, that is maybe going wrong at the moment, is the fact that there's a small number of people who make very big claims that in boardrooms and government cabinets make hope because they create a possibility. But the thing is that, like, a lot of the worst misinformation is bubbling out from the top, right? We're seeing it at the moment in the States. It comes from politicians, it comes from industry leaders, it comes from people like Geoffrey Hinton, who said very confidently in 2016 that radiologists were like toast, that AI was totally going to look after that, and we didn't need anyone who was able to do that. They are now earning 3 times as much as they were in 2016 because there's such a lot of demand. The guy who runs Anthropic, every year he appears to say in January that artificial general intelligence will be here by the end of the year or maybe next year, and it hasn't happened yet. But people continue to give him billions of dollars, right? And it's like, that opportunity is there, right? For people who have vision and expertise, we could claim that, right? That place. And it's like, technology is one of the worst sources of, like, to go back to this thing here, this is the first draft, I think it's called the cone of disinformation, which is an amazing term. But it's like, a lot of the time, how people talk about disinformation is it like rises up from the bottom. It really does not. It's basically people who have got money to be made take us all for the ride. And I'm not here particularly on an anti-capitalist rant, maybe later in the pub, but there's such a lot of nonsense that is talked about technology, right? And that we can own that, we can turn it around, we can make it better. And so one of the things that we want to be able to do is lift up our network of experts, give more people the chance to share their expertise, whether that is with the public, with journalists, with politicians and policy makers, in order that we're not just looking at that revolving door of big tech shaping everything. And lastly, this is, I think, the most important one. Why do we want to make it easy to be hopeful? One of the things I have learnt, both through research and just being alive, is that people who work in technology are this very weird mix of being often very cautious, very concerned, having a lot of worries about things, but not able to do anything about it. And that is a problem, because we have so much power, right? People in the UK who work in tech are more likely to have degrees, including a postgrad. They are high earners, even if you work in government, and used to people telling you you don't earn anything. You earn a lot more than people who don't work in tech. We're more likely to be male, white, older, able-bodied. All that power, and we're moaning in the pub. I mean, come on. What we need to do is turn that discontent into something active. We need to reclaim it. And one of the reasons we're starting the society is because, I did a survey last year, so 522 people who work in tech. It was organic, and self-selecting, but of 522 people, we learnt that only 1.5% felt that leading voices in tech spoke for them. So 98.5% of people felt either strongly or to a degree that they were not represented. And yet, only 15% felt that they were able to raise concerns. And this bit over here, sort of, 45% of people feel sort of able. What is that? It's ridiculous. And when we asked why, the main reason was there wasn't an organised way of doing it, right? And so our plan is to take that away, take that excuse away. A very tiny number of people, relatively, said that they weren't able to do it because of professional concerns. It was more that there wasn't the means, right? And so what can we do with all that power, all that privilege, all that opportunity? We are just beginning our journey. I think we will, I think there's a real opportunity to turn the expertise, the knowledge, the passion, the commitment of the people who actually know and understand about the technology, who make it every day, to give them a voice. And so I'll just briefly talk to you about what hope looks like. Having really hyped this up, I'm aware that I'm not about to show the most exciting thing in the world. But just in case, give me a cheer. Give me a hopeful cheer. Yes. Amazing. What a lovely noise that is. Right, so, one of the things that we would like is for things to be sensible, right? What a world we're living in that a sensible technology is an object of hope. But I think it is, right? You know, we want technology to be appropriate, affordable, accessible, and sustainable. We want to not take the fact that no one's worked out business models as an excuse to make as much money out of things as possible. But most importantly, and I think this is the thing, right? Hope needs to be ambitious. What's very difficult to do is to describe what a better world looks like when we're feeling overwhelmed with the now. But that actually, you know, a key part of what we're here to do is to make ambitious, progressive commitments to change. You know, and to capitalise on not all those things we were talking about at the beginning, the kind of anxiety, being fed up, being overwhelmed, but joy and pride in your work and your community and your colleagues. And so, like, what I'm here to say really is, you know, we have a great opportunity to use our power to make a difference for everyone. Not simply by making technology that improves people's lives, but by actually doing that kind of with our heart and soul, doing it mindfully for others. If you're interested in getting involved, we've got a stand at the front. There's information here about how to sign up. I also have the Devil's QR code. Seems amazing to me that these are normal now, but that will just take you to the URL. And then what I was hoping to do, I feel like I've got a little bit of time left, is that true, is turn it over to you. And so if we could spend like 10 minutes, if you're able to turn to the person next to you, and maybe then the person behind you, and have a conversation about what hope looks like to you. We've got a Mentimeter, which I will share in a moment, but depending on how much time we have left, and I'm aware I have not discussed this with anybody, so this might be a bit rogue, we might ask anyone who wants to tell us about what hope means to them to share back. And so I don't know if we're able to bring the lights up slightly, if that's okay. Again, not something I've talked about. I'm very optimistic, as you may have noticed. But, you know, if you're going to talk to each other in the dark, make that work. So, yeah. So, great. Over to you. If you're able to spend, like, the next, say, 8 or 9 minutes talking to each other, and I'd love to hear back from you afterwards. Thank you. Oh my goodness. That's a good one. Right. Everybody? Everybody. It feels terrible to ask you to be quiet, but what I realise as well, in my sort of last-minute enthusiasm, I didn't include the link to view the outcome of the Mentimeter, but I'll do that later because the internet is amazing. But what we have an opportunity to do now is like spend maybe 10 minutes hearing from people about what makes them feel hopeful. So there are 2 roving mics. What I'm going to ask is that if you could keep your comment like 30 seconds in order that we can fit as many people in. But if you feel really hopeful and you can't help it, then just let rip. So, who would like to begin? begin. And it's not scary. Everyone is lovely. I can testify to that. Do we have anyone who feels hopeful who wants to share? Tessa.
Right, slight cheat, but I think the noise in this room in the last 5 minutes made me incredibly hopeful.
Anybody else? Maybe stand up if you want to. Yeah, great. Is there someone there?
Hello. I do actually think sometimes sitting in a pub and moaning also makes me feel hopeful. I think there's something really important about connecting with people and being able to vent about stuff, because if you can't get it out there, you just kind of internalise it. So I'm here for pubs and moaning.
I take that point. I take that point. Somebody at the back? We've got someone hopeful at the back. Have we got someone close to that? Yeah, and we've got one here.
Thanks. My kids make me feel hopeful, actually, on reflection. But just in terms of a bunch of technologists, I get really hopeful hearing that we're going to somehow manage to find one voice, because so far we disagree about everything. But maybe this could work.
Yeah, I got very hopeful when I discovered narrative mediation, and that there is a way to kind of talk across differences that doesn't lead to kind of centrist, trying to squeeze power dynamics. So yeah, that's made me hopeful.
Yeah, like a broad church in which many opinions are able to live. So we've got, maybe if you have got a thing, maybe stand up, and then the people with mics will be able to see you more easily. There was one at the back, and I can see there's one here, but stand up so you don't get lost.
Hey, so really nice conversation over here. Really hopeful use of technology in the space of genetics and allowing for personalised medicine and how that will ultimately deliver better outcomes for people. Tim, sitting beside me, has an allergy to ibuprofen, so we've got a clear use case. We also have a baby.
Yes.
I mean, there is so much hope.
There was someone sort of down here on the side. Oh, we've got someone over there, sorry.
I'm going to speak on behalf of three of us. We started in the same sort of place, didn't we, around beer and cake and things like that, but we very much fitted into that demographic that you were talking about. We all agreed that actually young people is where the hope is. I think someone down here said their kids, and that's absolutely exactly the same, because, what else have they got but hope at the minute?
Yeah, it leads on to exactly the same point I was about to make. So, yeah, the young people that I work with give me hope, because the way that they approach this is really refreshing. I think there's less cynicism, so I'm really hopeful for the young people I work with that they can help to educate maybe some of the more senior people that I work with who cause some of the friction that we have.
This is apparently going to isolate 71% of people, so sorry about that, but we were saying women, so sorry men. But yeah, seeing more women in tech, especially seeing female developers, whenever I see them it gives me hope, just because, yeah, nothing against men, but when you have an all-woman team, like a Barbie dream team, it's just great. So sorry men, but yeah.
I thought we were running out of hope, but that's not the case.
I think I always hear, like, the point that you made about overwhelm and being stuck really spoke to me. And I think when I sat back down, Natalie turned round and said, so what makes you hopeful? And I was like, But actually, thinking about that and what everyone else has said since then, I think it's that there's so much to do, right? Which is always kind of put forward as a negative thing. But that's also incredible. there's loads of places to start. There's loads of places where we can kind of get going. And there's so much kind of enthusiasm and creativity. That gives me hope.
I think we've got time for like 2 or 3 more.
I'm at the back here. One thing that we talked about was when it comes to disability, when allies speak out on accessibility, it means a lot, and I think it gives us hope that the world is changing. So yeah.
Woo!
For me, it's the groundswell of resistance and activism against authoritarianism that I'm seeing in the US.
We've got somebody here.
My knees can't cope with this anymore.
So I work with a lot of people with disabilities, poor mental health, things like that. And outside of that as well, people that continue to function in a society that isn't built for them. As well, that can apply to women or, you know, economical disadvantages, but people who continue to excel despite that gives me hope.
Right, I'm going to wrap it up here, but please do sign up, pick up a badge if you don't already have one. They are excellent. And I would like to just leave it with everybody giving each other a big round of applause, very hopefully. Thank you very much.